Good morning, everyone. Sure glad you could join us again. I hope you had a great Christmas. That's what I prayed for all the joys, and hopefully Santa Claus was good to you. Once again, I always ask you, and I'd like you to remember our retired Ascensions in Perry, Missouri, and then also friends of the mission who are in need of God's healing. And so I ask you to remember Allison and Karen and Loretta and Louise and Sharon and Pat. And also to remember Bill and Brian and Clarence, and to remember Stan and Ralph. And I need to mention, we've had some good news about people we've been praying for, that they've been getting some good news. But there's also sad news, and we've been praying for Leonard. And he's a neighbor of our sister Mary Ann. And even in his 90s, he's driving for dialysis. Sadly, Leonard passed away this past week, and so we remember Leonard. So my reflection, because today, Monday, is the feast of Saint Stephen. And he's known as the first martyr in Christianity. It's interesting, the word martyr, it comes from a Greek word meaning witness. And so as we remember Stephen, and we remember his witness to the gospel. Stephen was selected by the apostles, and he was made a deacon, but he was selected to do one particular thing. They wanted him to serve food to the poor, especially widows, because they needed to go on the road preaching and evangelizing. And so Stephen did that. And then in the process, he really wasn't Jewish, but he was in the synagogue, and he spent a lot of time with the Jews. I believe he was Greek. Anyway, he got in a lot of arguments, and Stephen was stoned to death. Horrible martyrdom. But he witnessed to the good news, and not only in serving the poor, but in also his preaching. And as I pay tribute to Stephen today and remember him, here's what I'm thinking about. That service of the poor is something that we're all called to do. And I was reminded about it as we prepare for Christmas. We prepared for it during Advent. And I have the good fortune of always seeing this group of people who stand near a kettle ringing a bell every year before Christmas. The Salvation Army serves the poor. And these people, they just stand by a kettle and ring a bell. They only have 4 words in their songbook, and that's thank you and Merry Christmas. And so I pay tribute to Stephen because that's what he was asked to do by the apostles, to serve the poor. And I also remember how words make a difference. Words have an impact on people. And I think about, these men and women who stand near a kettle. Their words are very few, but they're meaningful. For them to say thank you and Merry Christmas. Well, for many of you who know me, I don't just put money in the kettle. I got to meet these people. So I want to tell you about 2 of them, just to see how words make a difference. One of them, and I don't get any money for this, but one of them, a week or so ago, sits outside of Mariano's in a suburb of Chicago. Mariano's is a big supermarket here. Anyway, he sits there because he's 80 years old, and He's a white guy with a white beard. He looks just like Santa Claus, and he's got the hat. By the way, his name is Paul. And he sits because he's got Parkinson's. But all he wants to do is say thank you and Merry Christmas. Well, my point is always to say thank you to them, and I do. And I'm just grateful for people who, no matter what the weather is like, they're just out there to serve the poor, to get a few dollars. And he had a great story to tell me. He told me that Archbishop Supich drove from the city, had a police escort, came out to see him because they're friends. And Paul was telling me that, he got out of the car, the police escort stopped in front of the store, and Archbishop Supich got out and went over, and Paul said, Archbishop, I've been in the hospital, and the story that Paul tells is that Archbishop Supich says, yeah, I know, Paul, that's why I came out to see how you were doing. Great story. Some people will say, are you sure, Father? Hey, this is a story that I want to believe because of Paul. So his words of Merry Christmas and thank you were very meaningful to me. A man 80 years old has got Parkinson's and has to sit. He can't stand. Anyway, a few days later, I'm at my supermarket in Lamont. And that one is Gielow. I don't get any money from them either. And I'm coming out, and here's an African American standing there, and once again, I want to know them. So their Merry Christmas and thank you is never going to be as big as my Merry Christmas and thank you to them. And so I go up, and his name is John, and I'm thanking John. And ordinarily I put $1 or $2. That's all I really, and I do it a lot. Anyway, I thanked John. And he said, well, let me tell you, I am poor. I'm a poor man. I struggle. But I still want to be able to help other people who are poor. Not the man. And so, obviously, I didn't give $1 this time. I grabbed a $5 bill just because of his story. And I gave him a $5 bill and started putting the kettle on. And I said, John, if I had that gold coin, every year somebody puts a gold coin in one of those kettles around the Metropolitan area of Chicago. And the gold coin is worth thousands. Nobody knows who does it, but it's done every year. So I'm telling John, I said, John, if I had that gold coin, man, I'd be happy. He said, you got that gold coin. Why don't we just split it? Give half to the Salvation Army and we'll keep the other half. It's funny, and I thanked him again. And it just reminds me of, as I pay tribute to St. Stephen, that words make a difference. And service of the poor obviously does. So that's my reflection, and to always say, boy, when the words are nice and the service is there to the poor, we're on the right track. Once again, I ask you to join me in praying for the miracles that we need if you'll take out your mission prayer. Divine Savior, transform me into yourself. May my hands be your hands. May my tongue be your tongue. Grant that every faculty of my body may serve only to glorify you. Above all, transform my soul and all its powers, that my memory, my will, and my affections may be the memory, the will, and the affections of you. I pray you to destroy in me all that is not of you. Grant that I may live but in you and by you and for you, that I may truly say with St. Paul, I live now, not I, but Christ lives in me. God bless. Stay safe. Turn in again next week, and don't forget to check us on Wednesday. God bless.